Hey everybody, welcome to Board Online, Board Offline. Today we're bringing you our top 10 favorite solo games of all time. So we already put out number 20 through 11, so now we're in the top 10, 10 through 1. So be sure to go check out that previous video if you haven't seen it already. Before we get down to the table and start talking about the best solo games of all time, I do want to mention our sponsor, StoneValleyGames.com. This is your friendly, distant game store. Be sure to go check them out. They have all kinds of fantastic stuff. Eric and Wendy run Stone Valley Games, and they have a focus on solo gaming, but they also have all the new hotness, tons of old classics. They really have everything you might need to scratch your tabletop itch. And it's not just, the board games that you see on my channel. They have Magic the Gathering, which I've never featured on the channel before. They've got some war games over there. They've got lots of great stuff. Be sure to go check it out. They also have a loyalty program. So if you are a returning customer, there's a way for you to get some additional benefits for that return service. And if you are in the military currently and you're stationed overseas, if you have an AA, AE, or AP address, they will ship for free to any of those addresses. So lots of great stuff happening over at StoneValleyGames.com. Be sure to go check it out. There is a link in the description below. So number 10 is Cloudspire. Last year this was number 4. The main reason I think that it's fallen is just I have not gotten into the table. This is one that once I get it to the table, I'm going to want to spend a lot of time with it. There's a lot of options here for not only solo play, but, here, I'll show you. So in Cloudspire, first off, the production quality, way over the top, just fantastic. These player boards are this sort of plastic. On here, you've got the fortress advancements are, the buildings that you're going to be able to build, right? And each of them, every faction has their own different things that are going to happen there, different abilities that come with that. And on the back, you've got the different, they call them talents, but they're basically abilities that each of the creatures, the heroes, the spires, and the other creatures that can be on your team have these different talents. And there's some that are duplicate, but for the most part, they are very different for each faction. So you've got all that going on. Now here's the solo scenario book. You can see there's a lot going on in here. And so this walks you through a campaign essentially. So here you go. So campaign, solo, scenario 1, and then you got scenario 2, and you start off playing as the Brahmin, and eventually you'll go through this until you get to the heirs, and you can see you have these different maps. Here are the opponents of the Brahmin, and it keeps going through, and you end up playing all of the 4 different factions that are in here in this solo campaign. And then if you really wanted to, which I have not done this yet, but you have these cooperative scenarios that you could also go through solo. Obviously, anything that's co-op can generally also be played solo. I will say that a single faction has so much going on that playing a solo game, a cooperative game solo could be pretty overwhelming, but it is an option for you. So the tiles, the board, it's this, this mouse pad neoprene material, and you have, multiples of these, and they, fit together, kind of like that. And the fortresses are these things right here. This is, each of your home bases, depending on which faction you are. They each have their own. And then in these squares, that's where the buildings are going to go. And You upgrade buildings based on, you know, what all you got going on in the game. You keep track of your health and whatever that resource is. I can't remember what that's called. Down here with some tiles that you'll put in here to keep track of it. And then of course, well, let me put these back in here. And then of course we've got the actual factions themselves. Everything is in the form of these very hefty poker chips here, and you can see it's got all the information you need right there, and then it's down here is listed the abilities, and you've got all these different things here. Here's a drift, whatever that is, burnout. So lots of different things going on here. Over here, you know, just such cool artwork and cool creatures and abilities. So many different ways all this stuff can interact. You have heroes and then regular creatures. The regular creatures, so this is sort of a tower defense game in some ways. The regular creatures actually march along in their own. The game tells you how they're going to move, and so a lot of it is setting them out in such a way that they're going to move in a way that's advantageous for you. And then the heroes you can actually control yourself. But so there's that whole kind of puzzle aspect of the game as well. And then you've got these really cool custom dice that belong to each different faction as well that you can use. And you've got these combat dice here and stuff like that. So lots going on in here, and it is such a fun game and really gorgeous. Lots of rules, but once you get in, that's one reason why once I get into it again, I'm going to spend a lot of time with it, because it is one of those games that, you know, once you put it down for a while, you kind of have to relearn it. But that is Cloudspire. Number 8 is Kingdom Death Monster. Now, this was number 5 last year. It keeps slipping down the solo list because I have had the opportunity to play it more and more with other people, and that definitely brings something extra to the table. At one point, I think it may have peaked at like number 3 on my solo list. And on my all-time favorite list, it was still number 1 this last year when I published that in May. But for solo, it's dropping a little bit because there is a lot to keep track of in solo. A lot. You're gonna have 4 different survivors, and I mean the rules. There are a ton of rules and a ton of story here. Just so much going on here in Kingdom Death Monster. The basic idea is when you start, you've got these 4 survivors that have nothing but a rock and a loincloth out here on the board, and you're going to be facing down against this white lion that is just massively powerful and starts ripping you apart, and it's everything you can do to survive. And after you defeat the white lion, you will be wandering through the darkness, and then you'll find the lantern horde. And around it will be a group of survivors, and that's how your settlement starts. And throughout the game, you will gain access to different... and there's a decent amount of expansion stuff in here, but you'll gain access to different buildings and structures and stuff. One of the first ones you'll gain access to is the skinnery, where you can build armor, and the bonesmith, where you can fashion weapons from bone, and the organ grinder, where you can get some support stuff. And then eventually you'll get the Caterium, where you can turn the white lion like his organs and bones and skin into additional weaponry and armor and stuff. And eventually you're going to want to end up with something like the blacksmith, where you can build very powerful weapons and armor and all this kind of stuff. Every settlement phase, you will draw a settlement event. It could be something like nickname or murder, or what else we have in here? Open mall, all kinds of stuff in here that could happen in the settlement events. Eventually, once you move along from the white lion, you'll fight things like the screaming antelope or the butcher, and just so many cool things going on here. I don't even know how to explain it in any significant detail to you what this is. You have all these different terrain and everything that you will use when going into fights. When you let's just say with the white lion here, where is he? So when you go out and hunt the white lion, because you have to actually go out on a hunt, you will have some random events that could occur against in any hunt, but you also have these white lion events that will occur only when you're hunting the white lion. For instance, lion in heat. The darkness is filled with an unearthly screeching and yowling. Huddled together, the survivors close their eyes but cannot sleep. All survivors suffer 1 brain event damage. Or scratching grounds. Claw marks scar the ground. The survivors may choose to investigate. Each survivor investigates, gains +1 courage, and rolls on the table. So you actually keep track of things like courage and understanding and this sort of stuff on your survivor sheet. And then you'll roll on this table and something could happen. But if no one investigates, if no one chooses to investigate, then you have to deal with a random event from the book. And then once you do get to the white lion, you'll build, and it's all in the book as well, so it has more detail, but you'll build a deck based on if you're fighting level 1, 2, or 3 white lion. So a level 1 white lion is going to have 7 basic AI cards and 3 advanced AI cards. And so the AI cards are how the lion's going to act. And for instance, well, let's see, there's a special. Here's that's an advanced one. Let's look at a basic one real quick. That's advanced. There's a basic. So a basic one is just a claw attack. It's going to choose one of these targets in order. We know whichever one it can get to first. And then it'll move an attack, and it's going to roll 2 dice. And all it's got to roll is a 2 or better, and then it'll deal 1 damage for each of those dice that roll a 2 or better. And then, of course, you can mitigate this by getting evasion and getting better armor and stuff that's going to help you miss getting hit. But this advanced card actually has the lion lick its wounds and heal. So if it has 10 AI cards, then every time you wound it, an AI card gets taken off the deck and put in the discard pile, or in basically the wound pile, actually is what it's called. And every time you wound it, you are lowering its capabilities because it doesn't have that card anymore. And once you've wounded it, once you get rid of all the AI cards, so 10 wounds, and then wound it one more time, you kill it. And the whole time it's got these resource cards. So maybe you get a lion's claw from it, or you get the great cat bone or sinew, and all this stuff that's specific to the white lion. And every quarry has resources, but every monster has an AI deck, you don't hunt Nemesis, but you do hunt the quarry. Oh, there's so much going on here. I haven't even touched on the gear. Let's just look at, let's look at the gear you can make from the white lion. So by hunting the white lion, you can make clawhead arrows or lion slayer cape, cat fang knife. All this stuff is very thematic. The white lion gauntlet, lion beast guitar, all this stuff can be made directly from fighting that one monster. And then, your characters can end up getting, disorders. This whole deck, all of these are different. Megalophobia, immortal, overprotective, hyperactive, superstitious, narcissistic, all this stuff that you can get. These are disorders, and then you have fighting arts and secret fighting arts. There's so much to explore in this game. I've played this game more than any other game in my collection, and I still don't feel like I have seen anywhere close to everything or experienced everything. Cannot wait for the next time we play a campaign of this. This is Kingdom Death Monster. Number 8 is Sleeping Gods. So it was number 3 last year, so still in the top 10, still definitely one of my top games here. This is a narrative-based game that, which by the way has just the one. Okay, so I understand wanting to fit everything onto a player reference, but when you have to, I almost have to use a magnifying glass to read this. It's a little bit much. It's a little bit much. Maybe 2 reference sheets would be better in the future. Anyway, so this is, by the way, there is expansion stuff in here. Is that's the expansion storybook. This is a fantastic narrative-based game, and throughout the game you're searching for these totems. as you find them, you check them off, and they're permanently checked off for you. And by checking them off, you end up unlocking stuff down here that then is unlocked for the rest of all future games, as long as you want to. And you can see I've only actually made it to the end to one ending. I have died the other times. I believe I've played maybe 5 different playthroughs of it. This, I believe, is, yes. So here is the map board. It's a book. You start here, and all these different numbers are spots that you can then go to in this book. I'm not going to get into some real spoilers here, but for instance, the Zykora trading post, which almost for sure is one of the first places you're going to go, is you go to 130. In here, Zykora trading post, and it says if you have this keyword, so maybe if you play the game, you find something with this keyword in it, usually as a result of a narrative section that you've gone through, then you would actually turn to 222 in here. But if you don't have that, then you keep reading through here. And you can do all kinds of stuff. You can explore the docks, visit a tavern, talk to the dockmaster, sell pollen at the potion shop, or leave and return to your ship. And depending on which one you choose, then you'll keep going in 130 to that specific one. And you can see there is this is a pretty thick book. It's got a ton of stuff going on in here. And this map, this map book has lots of different places you can go. You can see you've got the arrows here telling you where you're going next. And so the 26 and 27 actually relate to the expansion. So like if I went down off this end, I would turn to page 26 in this book, and we'd end up here. You can see coming in from page 8, so we'd end up right here. Or, if I go up here, I end up on page 2 back here. So see page 8, page 2, how that's how they connect. And so lots of cool stuff here. You got this big city here, all kinds of cool stuff to explore. Volcano, very cool stuff going on. And there, this is your ship, 3 or 4 player side, 1 to 2 player side. You have different actions you can do on your ship that are going to cost different amounts. This is the cost, and then you have different things that are going to, different benefits you get from all that. And you can see first on your turn, you do a ship action, 1. Second, you draw from the event deck. And every time it's depleted, the first time you're going to read source 2, second time you read 1.2, third time read F1. And so you go through this event deck 3 times. And then, but first ship action, then event, then you do 2 actions, and your actions are travel, explore, market, port. And it even has this reference for you for traveling, how far you can go. And then in here you have this whole crew. You have to use the entire crew every time. So that, a lot of times I tend to prefer games that don't have you managing a whole bunch of people. But I have found it's not terribly bad. You tend to gravitate towards a couple people that you use as your primary people. But you do have to have this entire crew no matter how many players you're using. And it's just, and then the combat in the game is a little bit of a puzzle. And I like combats that push the envelope as far as what people expect. And this one took me a little while to get used to. But once I did, I really started to feel like it was a interesting puzzle to figure out. And it has kind of a difficult a learning curve, not in terms of complexity of rules, but just in complexity of understanding the best things to do. So maybe you end up having 1 and 2 next to each other. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to cover these hearts up, but there's, different stipulations, different restrictions and everything on how you can do all that and how you can attack them. And then they're going to be hitting you back and stuff, but there's all kinds of cool, different monsters in here. And obviously these are all Mythans. You got a Slayer, a Brute, and a Guard. Each of them is a little bit different. But then you also have things like the Burning Eye and a Zarg Rat Bandit, Dream Guardian 3, Infested Crow Beast. Lots of crazy different monsters in here. Oh, Necrotic Mythan. I've never seen that before. That's interesting. Zombie Villagers. So you see there's lots of stuff in here. Very, very cool story. I really love this game a lot, and you know, even though I've played it numerous times, I've come nowhere close to finishing or seeing everything. And there's an additional expansion out there as well, I believe, so dungeons or something like that that I really need to get my hands on. But that is Sleeping Gods. Number 7 is brand new to the list. This is Tiny Epic Dungeons. Now, the Tiny Epic series, I've played 2 other ones, Tiny Epic Pirates and Tiny Epic Galaxies. And Galaxies I was okay with. Pirates was just not quite for me. But this one has really grabbed me, and you know, clearly I'm loving it as a solo game. I've also enjoyed it as a multiplayer game as well. So I have the stories expansion in here, so you'll see stuff for that, and the potions expansion. So you'll see all that stuff in here as well. Let's see. These are, hold on, let's see. Let's get that out of here. So you've got a ton of bad guys, all these different bosses. You choose one at random. You don't know which boss you're going to be fighting until you get into their lair. But you've got the Pharaoh, the Seer, the Tinkerer. I mean, look at all these guys. And they all have 8 health, but they have these symbols here that prevent their health from going below that until you do a couple other things in the dungeon. So that's pretty cool. You see this guy actually has 2 of them. The Lich. So there's a lot going on here. A lot of cool stuff. And then you'll have to fight a number of nemesis monsters. You have to find them and kill them inside the dungeon, equal to the number of heroes playing. You got all kinds of stuff here. And these nemesis monsters actually have their own, and I think this probably, I can't remember if this was an expansion or not. I think it, maybe not actually. You know, they've got their own standees like this. That's or meeples, I guess. They're wooden. I don't know if you call it a standee or not. There's the Minotaur. You got, you know, all kinds of guys like this. And then the goblins. Let's see. I don't know if you got a number of different goblins in here. They come like this, and you can see they have numbers on them 1 through 4. That's because when the 5th goblin enters the dungeon, you lose the game. That's one of the ways you can lose the game. The other way is there's a torch that's moving down this track the whole time, and you see it starts higher up depending on the number of players, 4, 3, or 2. And even if you're playing solo, you do have to control 2 heroes. And as it goes down the track, if it gets to the skull, you die. This is Act 1. When you find the boss, you flip it over, you start Act 2, and so it starts back up at the top of the track and starts working its way down again. Tons of heroes. All the plastic minis are the heroes in the game. Let's show you. You've got a human paladin, a pandakin brewmaster, a dryad druid, ancient wizard, human adventurer, wood elf rogue, half-orc barbarian. Just tons and tons to choose from for these heroes. They all have these 3 different skills, I believe is what it's called: strength, agility, and intellect. And that's what you'll be rolling skill checks against. You have these custom dice in here that you roll. These 3 are the ones that the heroes roll, and then this is the counterattack die that the bad guys roll whenever you attack them. If you don't kill them, they'll counterattack, and that's how that happens. The board is modular and randomly set out. The center of the board is always where you start, but let's see, hold on. But you have all kinds, so the rooms are flipped over like this, and then you explore, and you know, like if you were in this room, then you would have other rooms around it like this. So you can see the pathway here, and so you'd be in here, and then you would go to the next room and flip it over, see what's there. Oh, I actually found the boss's lair there. But say you go there, flip it over, and you've got this bridge, and then another room would come out right here. And so that's how that works. So you're going around exploring it. The dungeon can get to be 7 by 7, so it can get to be a pretty large area. And you're fighting goblins, fighting these nemesis, trying to find the boss and then kill him before time runs out, before it gets to the end of the track. So, or before you get overrun by goblins is the other thing. So yeah, that's Tiny Epic Dungeons. Next up is Tainted Grail: The Fall of Avalon. This I have. This is the base game here. I also have the expansions, all three of the expansions from the original Kickstarter, which I have not got into yet, but they are basically waiting for my group. We're going to get into it together. This is actually part of an expansion as well. These large sheets of paper, so don't take into account that too much. I can't remember if they all look like they are just the original. Anyway, that's part of expansion that I haven't quite learned yet or gotten into. But this is a dark retelling of the King Arthur story. This is all part of an expansion as well. And in it, you are not the heroes. You are actually like the D-list guys. You get this note in there for your own character, talking about, for instance, the one for the druid Maggot. I mean, literally the guy's like, man, I wish I wasn't leaving you behind. I wish I wasn't leaving you in charge because you've always been a disappointment. So like clearly you are not expected to be anything great. You are not who this world would want to leave its fate in the hands of. You have this kind of crudely drawn map that is sort of correct in terms of helping you get around. During the campaign, you will keep track of everything on here. By the way, this is one that you can play true solo, meaning that you don't have to have two different characters. However, I've found that the game feels a little better balanced if you do use two characters instead of just one. You can see this is my status sheet from my campaign. When we move into, I played the initial campaign myself. When we move into the next campaign, we will keep this, as supposedly these statuses that I check off could have some effect on that campaign. This was a different one. Yeah, that was a different unfinished campaign right there. So here are your actual characters. Neon was a stretch goal, I believe. And so on here, you'll have, let's see, let me open this up. It has this really cool feature. Where are the, yeah, here we go. So for your health, so my health starts up here for Bayor, right? And then my energy starts here, and my terror starts here. As my health starts declining, if it ever goes, see, you've got this bar here. If it ever drops below my energy, that now becomes the maximum of energy that I can have in the game. I can't go above my health bar. In the same way, if my terror ever rises above my health bar, then I begin suffering, terrible mental effects from the amount of terror that I'm experiencing. So that's a really cool feature there, I thought. Then you can keep track of the amount of food, wealth, reputation, experience, and magic with these same tokens just right here in here, just like this. You also will start the game. Let's see, Bayor starts, for instance, with 2 aggression. So you'd have these 2 here, and you put 1 in courage, 1 in practicality, and 1 in caution over here. And that way you would, that's how you start with these different, what do they call it? Skills, abilities, I can't remember, characteristics. And then you can upgrade them. And once you upgrade past, so like right now his aggression is already at 2. He can upgrade even farther and start collecting these special abilities. Let's see, these are all items. These aren't the secret items. Items are stuff like Moldy Tome, Wicker Shield, all kinds of interesting stuff. Your improvised armor, Grim Mercenary, stuff like that. Here we go. So yeah, so for this would be an aggression ability that you could gain. Monster Strength. When in combat, whenever you connect that particular key, you gain an additional damage that you do. So lots of cool stuff here. The map is modular, but like the Seventh Continent, it's not random. The world is what it is. So here's the Connacht Farmhold, and then 102 is what you'll find above it. 103, don't worry, I'm not going to go too far out in the world. I'm not going to spoil things. 103 is over here. 104 is over here. And 105 down here. So that is the kind of initial area. And this is always the initial area for, when you start for this scenario, for this campaign, for the base campaign. This is always what it'll look like when you start. And there's all kinds of things in here. You can visit the Connacht Farmhold, for instance, and you go into the exploration journal. This is 101. So right here at the front, 101, Connacht Farmhold, and there's all this stuff that you can do in the farmhold to, go through the story, figure out what's going on, figure out what it is you need to do. Meanwhile, you're going to be trying to keep these menhirs lit because they're going to be holding back the weirdness, which is encroaching on civilization. And all of this, I haven't even touched on the very unique combat system, which involves just putting down these cards in a row, connecting keys on the cards to each other. Really, really cool stuff going on here. Really love this. Cannot wait to get into the next expansions or campaign, the 3 other campaigns that I have, even though I'm going to wait for the 2.0 rules to come out, which I just ordered through the latest Kickstarter. But that is Tainted Grail. Number 5, and brand new to the list, is Nemesis Lockdown. This is the follow-up to Nemesis, which I have not played. I have not used this expansion yet either. I am going to do that at some point. This is a cooperative campaign, so obviously it can be solo as well. I haven't played this yet. I am planning on doing that with my group. So all of this opinion is based off of solo plays of the game itself, of just the base game of Nemesis Lockdown. There are 2 maps, and I am still undecided which map I prefer. There's a surface map, and you can see it's a really big board. But there's a surface map, but I'm just going to show you here the primary map. This is the main game board here, which is an underground map, and you'll be going through these different rooms. And all these rooms, when you start the game, you'll set out rooms. So here's a 2-level room, there. The repository is one that always starts open. It's up here, out of the screen there. Then you have 1-level rooms. And so you'll be putting them out, and your character will start out on the board in a certain spot depending on which character it is. But as you explore these rooms, let's say, let's say this, this room was open, and I moved from here to here, then I'm going to flip this room over. And actually, before you do that, there would be one of these exploration tokens on it. So you move into the room, the exploration token is going to have something that happens, and it also sets how many items are in the room that you could explore to get, that you could search to get. And so you would set it to 2 items are in the room, except if you're playing solo, it's halved. So actually solo would be just 1 item in the room. And then this danger symbol would cause some stuff to happen. And then the room itself has a special ability that you can take advantage of. And in this case, it's the lab where you can analyze objects to increase your knowledge, which is tracked on this separate board here. As you increase your knowledge and analyze different objects, different weaknesses of the aliens will become known to you. So that'll help you fight the aliens. Even though most of the time you're not going to want to fight them because these guys are mean and nasty, and they will do some serious damage to you if you end up having to fight them. The way they come to the board is when you move, you actually would roll the noise die, and then you're going to put noise, in this case, in space 3, which this area is the technical corridor, which is real bad because the technical corridor is symbolized by this room here, and it can only hold 1 noise token. Whereas if I had rolled a 2, then it would go in this corridor, and every corridor can only hold 1 noise token, but these spots right here are all connected to just this one space, the technical corridor. So you start making noise in there, that's where the aliens are going to come out of there pretty quick. If you roll a number that already has a noise token in it, then you have to draw from this bag, and something bad will happen from drawing from this bag. Let's see, that's one of the small aliens, so you might be okay. But different things happen when you draw from the bag. And so you're going through this. Everybody has their own objectives, which is really cool. This room has a computer in it, and so as long as there's power to this area, then you can use whatever the current computer action is. You can see there's these different objectives. This is a solo/co-op objective. Finish the game with an intruder carcass. So in this case, you're going to need to kill an alien and then get to safety. And there's a few different ways you can get to safety. At the top of the board, let's see. Up there at the top of the board is a time track. And as the token goes down that time track, different things are going to happen. CSS pods are going to fire off. So you could escape by getting into, for instance here, the cargo sending system C. If you got into that cargo sending system on the turn that it fired off, then you would leave the station and you've escaped. Maybe you're okay. You hope you're okay. Several things at the end of the game can determine that. The other way that you could escape is by getting into here, the bunker, and hopefully you'd be okay there, or by sealing yourself into this containment area down here. And again, hopefully you'd be okay. So, but why might you not be okay? Well, for one thing, there are these contamination cards, and the contamination cards, you can't see whether or not you are infected until you put it into the scanner, which is, you know, this thing right here. And once you scan it, then you'll know whether or not you're actually infected. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. If you're infected at the end of the game, you're dead. Regardless of anything else, you're dead. The other possible way is with these contingency tokens. One of these will be the active contingency token. So let's say this was the active one. Kill everyone in a CSS pod. So anyone that evacuated from CSS pods would be killed. You aren't going to be able to actually look at this one. This one will be up next to the time track. Instead, every player, let's say in the two-player game, I believe, or I'm sorry, in a one-player game, I believe you get two of these. So you would have these two. So you would know that the active contingency is not to save, excuse me, is not to save everyone, and it's also not to kill everyone in the isolation room. But you have the rest of these that you need to figure out. And unless you see enough of these, then you're not going to have a good idea of what the active contingency is. However, since you know that there's only one active contingency or one contingency that says kill everyone in the isolation room, and you've seen this one, so you know now the isolation room is safe. So you want to, for sure, this is a safe place. You could try to end the game in the isolation room. So this, I haven't even touched on the different characters you can be. You've got the sentry, the janitor, the survivor, the xenobiologist, the hacker, and the lab rat all come with Nemesis Lockdown. And of course, there's characters from the previous game. Lots of cool stuff going on here. Really, really love this game, Nemesis Lockdown. Number 4 is Root. Now, this was number 7 last year, so still holding strong right there in the top 10, kind of in the same general vicinity. Now, the Root, the original base board game, cannot be played solo. It also requires the Clockwork expansion, or if you wanted to get the Better Bot project from files from Board Game Geek, you could do that. But the Better Bot project was a fan-made thing that this is based off of, and is actually what basically the creators, Cole Worley, got in touch with the guy who created the Better Bot project, and they worked together to create the Clockwork expansion. And so that's where this comes from. So in Root, you're going to be one of a number of different factions. And actually, I believe I got all my faction boards in this box now. And let's get this out of the way. All right, so I don't have all the expansions. I believe I actually have just the Clockwork and then one other expansion. So the Marquita Cat, the Eerie Dynasties, the Woodland Alliance, and the Vagabond are the original ones from the base game. And then you can see they've got, here's from some expansions, Corva Conspiracy, Underground Duchy, Lizard Cult. That must have been a updated board that I got with. Yeah. So here we go. So the Mechanical Marquee, get rid of those guys. The Mechanical Marquee, the Vagabot, the Electric Eerie, and the Automated Alliance are, and then we have Mechanical Marquee 2.0. So these are all the bots that you can use to play against in when using the Clockwork expansion. And they do a really good job of replicating the strategies that a player would want to use as these original factions. And it's a little bit of a learning curve getting into some of these, particularly in the one that was hardest for me to wrap my head around was the Electric Eerie. But you then, when you're playing, you are going to have all these different pawns and everything. These are your warriors. The cats, what are they called? The Marquis cat. They start in one of the corners, and then and they basically have control of almost the entire board when the game begins. The Eerie are pushed back into a single corner, and they're trying to regain their homeland is the idea. So the Eerie want to get back out there and really take back over. The Woodland Alliance are these guys that are kind of everybody else in the forest that has suffered under the rule of the Marquis Cat and the Eerie. And they're almost like guerrilla warfare fighters. They're going to blow things up. They're going to, kind of hit and run tactics and that sort of thing. And then the Vagabond, which I have several different Vagabond tokens now, but the Vagabond is a lone adventurer who's kind of going around and just wreaking havoc amongst all the factions. The combat system is very straightforward. You just roll 2 dice, and whoever has the highest wins, essentially. There's a little bit more to it than that. And you've got these cards that you'll be able to do different abilities with the cards, and you use the cards to discard them to do different, perform different actions from your board. And on your board, it really runs through everything very easily. So the first thing you do every day as the Marquis Cat is place 1 wood at each sawmill that you've built out. And then in daylight, first you can craft, and then second take up to 3 actions. So it really goes through it nice and orderly for you. Makes it easy once you understand how they work. Makes it easy for you to go through every turn. And the way you win is everybody's going along this track at the bottom trying to get to 30. The first person to 30 wins. And there are a couple other possible win conditions as well. That's the primary way that's going to happen, though. And once you really understand how the Clockwork expansion works, I have found that I can easily play a game where it's me versus 3 AI and not feel overwhelmed by it. You just take it one at a time, and it really works out, and it's a lot of fun. That's Root. Number 3 is Hadrian's Wall. This was number 6 last year and has moved right on up, and I mean, the more I play it, the more I love this game. It is by far the most complex roll and write I've ever played. It's not even a roll and write, though. It feels like when it's not, there's no dice. So you cannot roll anything. It's a flip and write, I guess. It almost feels like a worker placement and write, though. You have 4 different types of workers. These are soldiers, civilians, I believe, builders, and servants. And then you've got these resources as well. And each player will have, or in the case of a solo game, just you will have this track right here. And this is going to help you keep track of what round you're in, because there's only going to be 6 rounds in the game. And you also have these 2 sheets of paper. And on here are all kinds of things you're going to mark off and bonuses you're going to get for doing that. And even though this looks like so much, and this suffers from one of the most, what feels like a needlessly complex rulebook, basically, I feel like the rulebook almost over-explains, and it's so hard because I know writing rulebooks is one of the most difficult parts of making games, and you don't want to under-explain, but this one definitely feels like it over-explained, and people read it and they feel like it's a little more complex than it really is. But it all comes down to, for an action, you look at in the brown box, and this shows you the cost, and then whatever you mark off So the cost here is to pay one servant, and then you can mark that off. The next time you pay one servant, you mark this off, and anything you mark off in a white box is the benefit. So in this case, you would move up on the resource production track right here, and then you would gain a resource right here. And it's that simple. You just follow along just like that, and everything makes sense. But it really does have a lot of interactions. There's a couple other things you have to watch out for, like anytime you see these orange flags, that means that you have to have built the fort to a certain amount and some stuff like that. But ultimately, as you're playing through, it starts to develop a nice flow. And the cool thing is when you do play multiplayer, you can play simultaneously with everybody else. So it really, the whole game, no matter how many players you have, should only take about 45 minutes. And when you're playing solo, so the way you play, though, is besides what you're setting up here as far as additional resources that you're going to get, there's this deck that everyone, so this says that at the beginning of round 1, for instance, everybody's going to get 2 soldiers, 3 builders, 1 servant, 1 civilian, and 1 resource. And then depending on what you've done in this section here, you'll get some additional stuff. And then you'll flip over 2 cards from your deck, and one of these cards is going to give you additional workers or resources, and the other one is going to be a end game scoring option for you. So maybe I take this one and set it here, so I would get an additional builder and civilian, and set this one here, and so the more temples I have filled, which is right over here, the more points I'll get from that at the end of the game. And this track right here are your victory points. And at the end of 6 rounds, whoever has the most points wins. And the other thing you have to worry about is at the end of every round, you will. So, for instance, at the end of round 1, if you're playing on easy difficulty, you'll flip over one of these, and the picks are attacking your central cohort here, the center cohort, and the number of these boxes filled in is how much defense you have. If you don't have enough defense, you're going to get disdain down here, which will end up as negative points. So lots of things you got to worry about. Certainly a game with a lot of complex interactions, but it is 100% worth it. This is a fantastic solo game and a fantastic game in general. That's Hadrian's Wall. Number 2 was number 1 last year, and it is only number 2 this year because it just flip-flopped with number 1, and that is Mage Knight. This is the original, in my mind, epic solo game. Just a fantastic, deep experience. So just starting right here, you've got day and night phase. During the day phase, black mana is not going to work. It's always going to go over here and get locked. So, when you're rolling the mana on here, all right, we've got 3 mana we can use. The gold mana works during the daytime and acts as a wild mana. But whenever you end up rolling black mana, that die gets locked. You can't use it for the rest of the round. On the other side, on night phase, gold mana can't work. It gets locked. But black mana, it's not wild. It superpowers your spells to be even more powerful. Also, over here we've got how much it takes, how much movement it takes to move in the different terrains. And you can see at nighttime it costs 5 to move in the forest and 3 to move in the desert. In the daytime, though, it's only 3 in the forest because you can see better, and 5 in the desert because it's hot and is much more difficult to move effectively through all that nastiness. You have all these different mage knights that you can be, all come pre-painted. And this guy is from an expansion when you were trying to beat him, basically. He's the big bad in the expansion. And most of the time, especially if you're playing without this guy, then you're trying to get to these cities and conquer whatever happens to be in the cities. There is so much depth here. So let's just start with Erethea's deck here. Most of the cards that come in the original decks are going to be the same. You have a few cards, such as this one is specifically for her, replaces one of the other base cards. And I believe that's her other one. So, yes, all the rest of these are the same for everybody. And so you have a little bit of variation there. The way the map works is normally you're going to start either here or here, one of these, and you'll have a deck, and you're not going to have all of these. You'll have a deck of these that you're drawing from, and flip it over, and you might end up with something like this, and you're starting here. And maybe the other one is like this. All right. And so you're going to be using movement. And really, though, this is not the right deck for him. It would be... There you go. Her out there. So not only when you flip these over, do you have to use movement from your cards. Let's see. So... show me movement right here. Move 2, right? All right. So then it costs 2 to move through the grasslands, which you can always reference right here. But you see, you have things like monasteries. These swords are where you've got rampaging enemies out here. And I think in the daytime they might start face up. I can't remember. It's been a little while since I played. Lots and lots of rules in this game that you're going to have to constantly reference. I actually have a binder with easy-to-reference guides that I found on Board Game Geek that I use just to keep myself fresh whenever I'm coming back after an extended break. So, but you've got monasteries where you can go and you can learn things like additional skills, or you can burn the monastery down if you want to, which will then give you a powerful artifact, I believe. Is it artifact or spell? You got these cards here. So, village, monastery. Yeah, so if you burn the monastery down, you get an artifact. Yeah. But burning it down is going to ruin your reputation. Meanwhile, you're increasing also on this fame track, and every time you go up a level, you will either increase your armor and your hand size. What is it? Your armor and your hand size, yeah. Or you will get a new ability and a new skill card. So you have all kinds of spells. Trimmer, space bending, offering, charm, cure, and each of these has this version, and in the nighttime version if you have the black mana to use it as well. So there's that. These are just wound cards here. So here are different artifacts that you can get, that you can keep in your deck and use them, or you can attach them to enemies, or not to enemies, to your creatures that you hire, your minions. Let's see. Yeah. So these are the elite units that you can hire. You've got stuff like the Delphana Masters, the Fire Golems, the Amatep Freezers, the Heroes, the Ice Golems, the other heroes. Amatep Freezers, Alta Mages, Amatep Gunners. So you can see that there's a lot of options here. You have your basic creatures you can hire as well through here. And then here we have all these different actions and skills or whatever that you can put into your deck as well. So there is definitely a deck building aspect to this. Just so much you can do in here. And as you get farther along, get deeper into these gold tiles are the core tiles. You're going to end up with dragons you have to fight. There, some of these walls. This is from an expansion, but all this different stuff that can show up. These mines are where you can mine mana crystals from the ground. These ancient ruins, these strongholds that you can conquer, and then they give you benefit for conquering them. There's these glades. Well, let's see what else. I know there's a wizard tower here somewhere. Yeah, wizard tower. You conquer that. I think you get a spell the moment you conquer it. And then you can also purchase additional spells from it. When conquered, any player can recruit and buy spells here. Maybe you don't get a spell just for conquering it. Oh, yeah. If successfully assaulted, mark it with a shield and gain a spell as your reward. So, yeah. So much cool stuff in this game. Absolutely all-time, one of my favorite games of all time, both solo and just overall Mage Knight. And my number 1 is Gloomhaven. Now, before I take down this overlaid image of the box cover, what I'm going to show you here is a scenario setup. There are some spoilers here. It is going to have a unlocked character in it with who's known as he's got the Cthulhu image or squid face image as his symbol. So if you don't want to see him or what's involved there, then keep that in mind. You might want to skip number 1 and know that Gloomhaven is my number 1. Also, the scenario that's set up is the solo scenario for that class. So those are the spoilers that are about to happen in 3, 2, 1 spoilers. Okay, so Gloomhaven is a modular, looks like a dungeon crawl, but do not come into this game thinking it's a dungeon crawl. It is not a dungeon crawl. It is a Euro game, card management game, tactical movement game, hand management game disguised as a dungeon crawler. Every character has one of these character boards. Right here is the size of your hand. You will always start with your full hand of cards available to you. You'll have all 11 cards in here. All right. As the character, when he starts at level 1, he only has 6 health. And I keep saying this Plague Herald is actually a whole bunch of insects and bugs and stuff that have come together into a collective consciousness and that wear clothes now. So he is not really accurate, but right now my character is level 5, and so 10 health is what this character has every time we start a scenario. But you'll always have 11 cards. You can see though that your initial hand of cards has level 1 and level X. Level 1 is obviously level 1, and X is like a slightly more advanced level 1. But then as you level up, you can unlock additional cards. So you see this is a level 5 card I've got here. Level 1, level 2, there's some more level 1s. There's a 3 there, there's an X. And there's a 4. And so you're constantly adjusting your hand as you level up. You can also, the cards you take out of your hand when you level up, you can always reaccess them and bring them back into your hand and remove something else. So that's cool. But on your turn, you're going to choose 2 cards. You're going to play both of them, and you'll play the top of one and the bottom of the other. Also, this number in the middle is your initiative, so it's going to determine how quickly you move. All the bad guys that are going to show up, and in this scenario, we're going to end up with some black imps and some giant vipers, and they're going to show up. They're going to populate the board, and they're going to have their own cards with initiative and their whether or not they're going to move, whether or not they're going to attack, all this kind of stuff. And so, like, if we're playing against a level 3, we would here's 3 right there, and you just slide the black imp into this. And so now these stats are the only ones that are important for level 3 black imps. And you can see, obviously, it can go all the way up to level 7 right there, because there is a level 0 on here as well. You have magic. So let's see if I have anything on here that affects the elements. Okay, so right here, if I were to play it for this ability down here, then wind magic or air magic would go all the way up to technically after my turn, it would go to the strong spot here. And then it's available not only for me to use, but for allies if we're playing multiplayer, or when you play solo, normally you have to play two-handed. This is a solo specific scenario, so you only use the one guy. But then allies or enemies even can use this element now that it has been infused into the room. At the end of the round, it'll move down and start waning, and then it'll go away if it hasn't been used. And you have 6 different elements that can go into the room. For the attacks, you have all kinds of, you have ranged attacks, you have area of effect attacks, Just a ton of stuff. You have all these different effects that can occur: stunned, poisoned, strengthen, immobilize, invisibility, disarm, muddle, wound, and I can't remember what that one is. Anyway, so the solo scenario book has one scenario for each of the character classes that comes in the base game. This is the book for the scenario book for the base game. And you can see just a ton of stuff. I want to say, hold on, let's look and see. I won't actually show it to you for spoiler purposes. 95 scenarios in the book. You've got a map that as you unlock scenarios, you put stickers on the map to show where those are. Oh, this game, talking about it right now, I think I'm going to actually play this scenario right after I finish filming. So much excitement for this game, and Frosthaven's coming soon. If you have Frosthaven coming, be sure to tune back into this channel. I have instructional videos for Frosthaven that will be coming out once I get my copy of Frosthaven. Fantastic experience, fantastic game, and just an absolute epic solo experience. Gloomhaven. There you go. That was our top 10 best solo games of all time. Be sure to come back for more great content coming up soon. We have a unboxing of Solutions. We have a instructional video for Waste Knights coming up. We've got a video for Doomlings coming up. Let's see, Australia is coming up. Lots of great stuff. And until next time, if you're bored online, board offline.